Today's conversation I'll have with Mike Jones, British journalist. Vladimir Putin has won in Russian Federation presidential election. It showed 87.25% of the vote, the highest ever result in Russia's post-Soviet history. The result means Putin will become Russia's longest-serving leader in more than 200 years. Candidate Nikolai Kharitonov came second with just under 4%, Vladislav Davankov third, and Leonid Slutsky fourth, the results suggested. Nationwide turnout was high, 74.22%, when polls closed. What, in your opinion, is the reason for such a high voting turnout in Russia?
In my opinion, the reason for the historically high voter turnout and the record number of votes for President Putin was due, in part, to the self-defeating exercise by the West to prevent Russian voters from going to the polling stations. We saw direct targeting by the Ukrainian military of polling stations across the new territories, but also in Belgrade, where 12 people, I believe the latest reports, were killed, 98 injured. The West, in trying to sabotage the polling stations by Ukrainian telegram channels, coercing people to do these acts of sabotage, Molotov cocktail throwing and paint pouring, just demonstrated to Russians the importance of doing their civic duty and also voting for President Putin. Clearly, the West didn't want him in charge because he is leading Russia to victory.
What another term of Putin's presidency means for Russia and its neighbor countries and the world?
Another 6 years, another term for President Putin would ensure stability in Russia, protection of traditional values, and the continuation of the Russian Federation as we know it today. Something exceedingly important, not just for Russia, but the entire world. Russia has been a leader in founding the multipolar world order, the alternative to the unipolar, the rules for thee but not for me world order led by the US and, of course, enforced by the collective West, particularly the EU, when it comes to bullying other governments. We've seen an example of this with South Africa, who have complained of such behavior, and with Victoria Nuland and her visits. So, particularly for countries like Belarus, they rely on Russia, its stance, its strength, and its stated purpose, which the Global South also relate to. Numerous African countries now also passing anti-LGBT laws, much to the chagrin of the West. So this was not just an election that affected the Russian Federation, but indeed the world.
What are your predictions for Russia and Western world political situation in the nearest future? And can we expect any changes there?
My predictions for Russia and the Western world regarding the political situation in the nearest future, well, I believe it's going to be business as usual for Russia. They will continue as stated and working to achieve their stated goals and aims. In the West, we will continue, I believe, to see the degradation of society, the increasing illustration of the detachment of the elites from their people. We will see these demonstrations of just how undemocratic these countries are. Germany, for instance, trying to not recognize President Putin as the president of Russia and instead referring to him just by his surname and even calling him a ruler instead of president. We'll see this lunacy continue in the West. Then leading up into November, I believe this will manifest in a landslide vote, possibly for Trump, and we may well see some other regime changes in EU countries as the citizens and the citizenry get increasingly unhappy with their leaders and increasing their admiration of President Putin in Russia.
Thank you very much for interesting conversation.